All kinds of all-star games between the two of them. Oklahoma City also gets 2 #1 draft picks and a couple of swaps for 2 other years. A week after Paul George leaves town, Westbrook goes to reunited with James Harden. Paul started his NBA career in Oklahoma with the hurricane-transplanted Hornets. Adrian Wojnarowski, of course, first with the news of this trade here with us on SportsCenter to fill us in on what else is happening. Woj, from first making Russ available to making a deal seems to have happened really quickly. How did it all come together?
Very much by design, John. Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook, they did not want this to linger, and they were aggressive this week in searching out trade partners. Houston, Miami. Detroit showed some interest, but it was really a Houston-Miami derby. And, earlier today, Houston, Oklahoma City came to terms on an agreement, and this was done almost as soon as this auction started.
If OKC didn't want to strand Westbrook in the middle of what's going to be a rebuilding project because they have all these #1 picks now, it seems the same might go for a 34-year-old Paul. Is there more to come here with CP3?
I believe so, John. I think the Thunder are going to talk with Chris Paul's agent, Leon Rose, try to get a sense of what he might like to happen here. 3 years, $124 million left on Paul's contract. It's 1 year less than Westbrook's 4 for $171. That goes back to Houston. But, they're trying here. They're headed toward a rebuild. They still have a team this year, that's competitive in Oklahoma City. The market's going to be a very short list of teams, probably beginning and ending with Miami, to see if there's a deal that could possibly work with the Heat, see if they're willing to take on that money and whether they might want a draft pick with it to take on that kind of money. But they were interested in Westbrook. Houston beat them out for him. Now I think there could be a conversation to be had between Oklahoma City and Miami. Otherwise, Oklahoma City would start the season with Chris Paul. He actually played there once before when New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina, played their season there. He's familiar with the market. But at this point in his career, Chris Paul wants to win. He wants to be with a contender. He doesn't have that with the Thunder.
Somebody call Pat Riley. Woj, the offseason reshaping of the NBA continues. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, this pair pretty fascinating on a number of levels over the past 5 seasons. They rank 1, 2 in the NBA in a number of key categories. Harden first in points. Westbrook tops in the league in assists and usage rate. 2 guys who love the ball in their hands. And now to a guy who loves the mic and the camera and who played some college basketball, Stephen A. Smith. Right out of the gate, what do you make of this deal?
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Stephen A. Smith. Hey, Tony, when Wilbon is gone, do you miss him?
Tony Kornheiser. Wilbon? Wait, is he the guy who used to sit there? Is he that guy? So we say this, we kid because we love, and because as much as we love Wilbon, he's not watching the show. He's in Japan. All right. So we don't have to worry if he sees it or he doesn't see it. But if he texts me, I'll tell him you were great.
Somehow,
I'll tell him you were great.
Somehow, I don't think you would be worried even if he did.
Probably. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. With Wilbon too soft to work the entire week, I am lucky to be joined by our great friend from First Take and his very own daily radio show, Mr. Stephen A. Smith. And we begin today with a story about an all-star athlete going to the Bulls. Not Wilbon's Chicago Bulls, real Bulls, actual Bulls, the Bulls that run wild in the streets in Pamplona, Spain. Josh Norman, a former all-pro cornerback who the Redskins are paying a total of $75 million, is shown in this video literally jumping over a bull. This was a huge thrill for Norman, who said, quote, "I had to face the bull straight on. It was fun. It was worth it. It was really worth it," unquote. Stephen, if you ran the Redskins and you woke up to this morning, what would you do?
Let me tell you something, what I would do, Tony. I'd have picked up the phone. I'm talking about Daniel Snyder. I'm not talking about the general manager. I'm not talking about the head coach. I'm talking about the owner, Daniel Snyder. I'd have picked up the phone. I'd said, "Excuse me, I just gave you $37 million over the last 2 years. By the way, you've been here 3 years. You haven't made the Pro Bowl one time.
Right.
Okay.
Underperformed.
You've been here.
He's underperformed.
$37 million. You're slated to make $15 million. Did you know that if I just got rid of you right now, I would save $11 million on my cap? What the hell is wrong with you? Do you know what? I better not ever in life see that again as long as you're wearing a Redskins uniform. You got to be crazy.
So wait a second. So you wouldn't say to Josh Norman, "You have mad hops jumping over the bull like that"?
No, I would not.
I would have said exactly what you would have said. I would have said, "You've underperformed for me, and now you're doing something that could get you killed." 5 people were gored, apparently, in that thing. Yes. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, Well, the Redskins are terrible. Okay, they're a terrible team. What if they lose a guy to Bull Goring? Like, when you go on the DL, is that what it is supposed to say? I would think that, you know, I thought about this. What would be in your contract that you were prohibited from doing? This wouldn't be in there because nobody would ever think you would do this.
You're supposed to know better. That's really, I like Josh Norman, but you're supposed to know better. Now, the man accounted for 7 turnovers last year, 3 forced
Had a good year, his best year.
Had his best year as a Redskin, pretty decent year. Pro Football Focus, Josh Norman, did you know they have you ranked as the 69th best quarterback in football? And I'm watching you jump over Bulls? We got a problem.
So do you
we got a problem.
Should we put it in the contract that you can't walk into the Lions, then that you can't hold poisonous snakes at a tent revival?
You know what?
What are you doing?
Come up with anything that you can think of, and plus I would have the right to modify and add stuff at my discretion if it endangers your ability to potentially play football for me.
They're not cutting him. Trust me. I know this team. They're not cutting him.
They're not. No. They're not. By the way, if you didn't hear about this guy, let me introduce you to him. James Ennis III. A virtual unnamed forward for the Philadelphia 76ers just signed a 2-year extension to remain with the team. When asked why, he didn't say it was about the money, nor did he say it was about his love for the city of Philadelphia. No, Tony, he said the reason he elected to stay was that Kawhi Leonard now going to L.A., the 76ers would walk into the conference finals in the Eastern Conference. Tony, should he have opened his mouth and said this? And is he right?
So my first reaction was, who in God's name is James Ennis III or James Ennis II? And I did small research because I don't do the kind of research that you do. And I find out that he plays about 12 to 15 minutes a game. And he's just some guy. And he's writing checks that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons have to cash. Now, I've gone through this with Mike. He loves the 76ers, and maybe you do too. So I'm going to sit back and listen on this. But to me, if you lose Jimmy Butler, and you lose J.J. Redick, you've lost a lot of scoring. I don't know why people love the Sixers as much as they do.
Well, I would say this. The prevailing point is that his mouth, tried to deposit checks that his backside can't cash. He just needs to keep his mouth shut. Average 6 points, 3 rebounds last year. Just be quiet, be happy you're in the league. That's number one. Having said all of that, I will say this. I have the Philadelphia 76ers as the favorites to come out of the East. Boston has lost Horford. Where did they lose him to? To Philadelphia. They've lost Kyrie Irving, although they replaced him with Kemba Walker. There's some depth issues as well. Milwaukee lost Mirotic. He goes back to Europe. You lost Brogdon. He goes over to Indiana.
But they got the best player in the league.
I understand that, but again, Brogdon and Mirotic are two big losses, okay?
Right.
We saw Toronto smoke them, led by Kawhi Leonard. He's now in Los Angeles with the Clippers. So when you think about the preeminent roadblocks in the Eastern Conference that could potentially derail the Philadelphia 76ers, all three of those teams are a lesser version of what they were last year. Meanwhile, although the Sixers lose Redick and they lose Jimmy Butler, two big losses, make no mistake. They got Horford. They acquired Josh Richardson, who's a damn good two-way player coming from Miami. You still kept Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. With Horford, I think that's a big deal, and the Sixers should be the
I'm not going to go back and forth forever and ever on this, but do you ever worry that Horford, at his size, will get in Embiid's way?
No.
And that won't work? So you think that's going to work?
Because he's an elite defender, he's a great sub, and he can hit perimeter shots away from the basket,
do you think it's
which is
possible
a plus.
with Toronto that even though they don't have their best player, that when a team learns to win and accomplishes something, there's some muscle memory, and they remember how to win, and they shouldn't be discounted that easily?
Well, my response to that would be, what muscle memory are you talking about? I think the biggest muscle was Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah,
now,
no,
if there were
understand
others, that would be different. To lose him is a big deal.
So you like the 76ers?
I like the 76ers.
So you're with James Ennis the third, the second, and the first?
I'm with James Ennis the first, the second, and the third, but not the dude that opened his mouth.
Okay.
The dude that's on that team.
Chauncey Billups has a theory as to why nobody has picked up Carmelo Anthony. He said this on Sirius XM radio. This is a quote. Scoring 30 points meant too much to Melo. He could have games where he had 20, 22 points. We win the game, and he's mad. He might have 36, we lose the game, and he's in there picking everybody up. I think now you fast forward the tape, and the reason why he's not in the league, because he's still worthy, is that he hasn't mentally taken that step back to say, okay, I'll come in and play against backups. I'll try to help the team out. I know I might not be able to close, but I just want to help. He's not there yet, unquote. That is some kind of quote. Stephen, is Chauncey Billups right?
I don't think it's denied. I don't think it can be denied that he's right because he would know better than most. The one NBA Conference Finals appearance in Carmelo Anthony's career, Chauncey Billups was his point guard. When when he played with the New York Knicks, Chauncey Billups was his teammate for a little bit there as well. We have to take this into consideration. I'm one person that has constantly come to the defense of Carmelo Anthony, a career 24-point-per-game scorer, ISO ball kind of playing, what have you. I get all of that. But I never wanted to deem him selfish. Chauncey Billups is more qualified to make that quote than me. And for Chauncey
I think they played
Billups,
together on two different teams.
That's right, Denver and New York. Yeah. For Chauncey Billups to say, quote, you score 20, you score less than 30, and you're down when we win, but you score 30 or 36, and you're picking guys up when we lose. That might be the most devastating quote that has ever been said against Carmelo Anthony. And that can't be denied.
I'm going to go back in history for a little while. I mean, because Carmelo Anthony is a great player, and he's fallen off a cliff. I mean, nobody wants him. He's a great player. Right. I'm going to go back to the Knicks, and I don't do this to make you angry, because it's even before you were born. The Knicks of the Willis Reed and Dave DeBusschere team. At one point, they gave one of their aging stars a sweetheart deal. You know, 2-3 years on the end of the bench, you don't have to do something. I think it might have been Dick Barnett. I'm not sure. And in fact, the minutes are reduced, but you play it out in glory. You know, you're back with the team. And I remember Earl Monroe, who was a great, great player, who essentially took Dick Barnett's spot. And he said, I want one of those when I'm done. I want one of those for 2 or 3 years at the end. And he got one of those too, and he played 20 minutes a game. This is a guy who's in the Hall of Fame. Apparently, Carmelo Anthony cannot adjust to that sort of deal, because there's a lot of teams who could be helped by him if he were to do that.
I can retort with even more of just as a profound of a story. Carmelo Anthony's 3 best friends in the NBA are considered to be the banana boat crew of Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Chris Paul. Chris Paul's never been to an NBA Finals, but a miniature point guard, floor general. We know how exceptional he is, but again, your size and your game, you're limited to some degree in terms of carrying a team. That's not the case with Melo. Wasn't the case with D. Wade, who won an NBA Finals and an NBA Finals MVP before LeBron ever arrived. Plus, it's certainly not LeBron James. You got drafted in the same draft as LeBron James and D. Wade, and you have never been to an NBA Finals. That's an ouch reality. All is not well in Major League Baseball. Young players aren't getting paid. Older players aren't getting
NBA contracts. Every other professional athlete looks at these long guaranteed contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars and says, I want a piece of that. Baseball players go, I play 162 games. I'm out there for 8 full months. I don't get a fraction of this. They can keep me in the minors to delay the clock ticking so I can get to free agency. They can keep me from free agency for 6 years. So I think their anger is justified. And I think if they had a stronger union, it's possible they could make some progress on those 2 points.
Well, you used the word jealousy. What I would say to you is this. Maybe it's not jealousy. Maybe it's absorbing the reality of this situation.